Hello everyone. Let us discuss one very interesting chapter, Interpretation of Statutes. The word statute means law. So we are going to understand how to interpret law. This is not any act. Okay? It's not an act, but these are guidelines. They will help us to understand the language of law. I am very clear about my steps. Step number 1. Read and understand the text as it is. If it makes sense, you don't need interpretation. Only when there is ambiguity, there is confusion, then we will refer the interpretation of statutes. So step number 1, read the text as it is. If it makes sense, your work is done. Step number 2, in case of ambiguity, okay, if there is ambiguity, if there is confusion, then refer interpretation of statutes. They will help to clarify that particular text wherever you are stuck. Then we will refer interpretation of statute. When you are reading the text as it is, that is interpretation. When you read the text as it is without applying any logic. But when you apply logic, facts, circumstances of the case, then that is construction. Okay, that is construction. So first, read the text as it is. If there is confusion, then refer the the interpretation of statute. So the word interpretation is actually derived from the Latin phrase which means to explain, to understand, and to translate. So whenever a text is placed in front of you, the text is trying to explain something, you understand it, you translate it, you process it, then you apply it to your situation. So it's not just a one-time thing and it's just some one paragraph given to you. It is a step-by-step procedure. Okay, it is not just like, one sentence we are able to understand. It's a step-by-step procedure where anything is to be explained, understood, or translated. Yeah, explained, understood, or to be understood, to be explained, understood, or translated. So texts are of different nature. You have religious, social, philosophical texts. Every text requires different expertise. So we are trying to understand how to interpret various laws. Language, it was considered to be the most important invention of mankind, but I think language is the most ambiguous because English is a very funny language. One word can have so many interpretations. So that is why we feel the need for this chapter. So there is always a need for interpretation. Now, in case a question is asked on what is the need for interpretation, you can pick up points from here. Let us discuss a few terms which will help us to understand the chapter. The word statute, yes, all these can be asked as a short note. Yes, this can be asked as short note. Again, I'll write it over here. All these terms can be asked as short note. So maybe 3 to 4 marks. What is the meaning of statute? For a layman, statute means law. But it actually means the written will of the legislature as compared to the unwritten one. What is the unwritten one known as? It is known as usage. They are local trade customs, traditions, etc. So to a common man, the word statute actually means law or regulations of every sort. But the actual definition is that it is the written will of the legislature as differentiated from the unwritten legislation. So it is a written will. This is the key word. It is a written will. It is very different from the unwritten one. Okay, the unwritten will is known as usage. These are trade customs. traditions. Okay, they are not written anywhere, but they are followed in our line of business since many years. Like in partnership, they have not specified anything about interest on capital in the partnership deed, but in our line of business, we are getting since many years. So it's an unwritten rule which is followed since years. So it denotes an act which is enacted by the parliament in our country. Parliament is the law making authority. Legislative authority means the law making authority. So constitution uses the word law instead of statute because constitution is for the common man. Law includes ordinance, orders, bylaws, etc. Statute is the written law in contradiction to the unwritten law. That unwritten law is nothing but sage. In this chapter, you will find that the same concept, the same sentence is, written in different forms, like how we write in college. The idea is the same. It's only that they have written in 3 or 4 different ways. The key words over here are that it is a written law in contradiction to the unwritten law. And I have also underlined the key word. Yes, again, important for exam, what is the meaning of the word document? Like we had studied in General Clauses Act also, it was slightly different over there. The document means a paper or any material which provides information, proof, or evidence of anything. So these are the keywords. Any paper, cloth, ball, stone, any paper or other material thing. See, paper and any other material thing, this has widened the scope of the definition. Any material thing which is providing a proof, it is giving evidence of something. So what should I say, FIR, yes, FIR which you file with the police, that is a proof of what happened, the event. It is a proof of the events. Okay, suppose I want to write a letter explaining something, that is also providing information. So any document which provides information, it is a proof. It can be produced as an evidence. If I write an affidavit, it's an evidence in the court of law. That's a document. So document is anything in writing, maybe using words. It may be in the printed form. Even photographs are documents because they document that event. Okay, so it documents that we had gone to some place as tourists. It documents that the Prime Minister of India had inaugurated the bridge. So it is a document. It means any matter which is expressed or described upon any substance by means of letters, figures, marks, or any one of those means intended to be used or which may be used for recording that matter. So any paper, any material where you are writing by means of figures, letters, marks, you are drawing something, you are writing by letters, anything which is used to convey information is a document. So these are the 4 matters, these are the 4 elements of document. Yes, this is important for exam. This is very important for exam. Important. So what are the 4 elements? You have matter, record, substance, and means. Matter means the content. Okay, matter is the content which you are writing. Record means you are writing it, drawing it, using letters, words, figures. The substance, it may be on a paper, stone, ball, like how in olden times they would draw on caves, photographs, any material in your mobile, digital device. It is a means wherein your letters, figures, marks, symbols are used to communicate. Okay. So the first element is the matter. Its usage with the word any matter, it shows that the definition is comprehensive. So see over here they have written any matter. It means there is no fixed content which you can write. Anything that you write which gives information, which is an evidence of the event, that is considered as a document. It is used to maintain record. Second element indicates that a certain mutual or mechanical device which is employed, it must be either in writing, it may be expressed or by description. Substance means anything which helps the matter to get a permanent form. So this is the keyword. Okay, means you can use figures, symbols, signs, etc. Instrument. It is a formal legal document. So there are 3 words. it is formal, it is legal, it is a document. Because it is a document, it will have all the essential elements of a document. Yes, it will have all the essentials of a document. It is formal and legal also. It means it can be produced as an evidence in the court of law. What is the purpose of that instrument? It creates or confirms a right or records a matter, like negotiable instrument. We had studied what is the meaning of negotiable instrument. Negotiable instrument, the word negotiable, it means transferable by delivery. Document means any instrument carrying certain rights or duties. Okay, so instrument means any document carrying certain rights or creating duties. So you can take the example of a negotiable instrument. So what is the meaning of instrument? Instrument actually means a document which is carrying certain rights and creating duties. Yes, it imposes duty, carries certain rights. Like I have a check, I have a right to receive money against that check. If I endorse it, there are certain duties which are created on me as an endorse. It is a formal writing of any kind. The word formal again and again used to indicate that there is a format for preparing these instruments. Okay, it is a formal. It must be in a particular format, and it can be produced as an evidence in the court of law. Instrument as defined under section 2 clause 14 of the Indian Stamp Act. Now this definition which we are studying in the interpretation of statute, it is actually based on the Indian Stamp Act. Instrument includes every document by which right or liability is created, transferred, extended, extinguished. It means it is over, or recorded. Anywhere, any place where it is recorded. Students, there is not much that we can explain over here, but yes, you need to learn everything. The definition can be asked in the exam as per the Indian Stamp Act, so you have to explain it. Next, let us discuss what is the meaning of a deed. Like you have a partnership deed. Yes, everything in writing. So, deed is an instrument in writing but where? On parchment or paper. Okay, so it is in writing, or there is some legible representation or words on a parchment or a paper which purports, it means it intends to have some legal disposition. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of deed? Deed means any instrument in writing. So it is an instrument. Instrument is a document. So can I say deed is also a document? It is either it is written either on a piece of paper or a parchment. Parchment is also paper only. It intends to give some legal disposition. They say that deeds are instruments, though all instrument may not be deeds. Now, if you read the definition of instrument, it clearly states that instrument means formal writing of any kind, like an agreement, deed, charter. So can I say that deed is an instrument? But instrument is a very wide term. Deed is just an instrument. But instrument also includes agreement, deed, charter, record, etc. Yes. So can I say that deed is an instrument? But instrument is not a deed, because instrument is a very wide term. It includes agreement, deed, charter, record, etc. So all the deeds are instruments. All instruments may not be deeds. They can be something else also. In India, however, there is no distinction between instrument and deeds. Then why did they explain all this in detail? Yeah. Okay. Interpretation and construction. See, it is a very simple concept. They have written everything. There are just 2 or 3 main points, but they have just framed it in different manner. Now, step one, please remember this. Step one, read the text as it is. Okay, read the text as it is. If it makes sense, then don't proceed. Stop there only. When you read the text as it is interpretation. If there is absurdity, then we will proceed further. Then apply logic, facts, circumstances of the case. What you are doing is construction. Okay? So, interpretation means reading and trying to understand the text as it is. Only when it leads to absurdity, then we will go towards construction. Interpretation is the process by which the courts seek to ascertain the meaning of the legislature. It is the process by which the real meaning of the act or document, the intention, is to be understood. What are the keywords? Courts seek to ascertain the meaning of the legislature. We try to find the real meaning. Why is interpretation important? Because of the inherent nature of the legislation as a source of law. We need to understand what is written as it is. The text generally have a sharp legal character and everything is written in English in the technical form. So we don't need some, rules which will help us to interpret what is written. Statutes require greater accuracy in understanding. See, when you were studying the Contract Act, initially you had no idea what is void, what is voidable. But when we explained it to you, when I explained the interpretation that this is the meaning, that time you understood. And now when I say void, you know it is not enforceable. When I say voidable, you know that it is enforceable and the option of one party. So law requires a greater accuracy to understand. The process is more legalistic. It makes the intensive use of legal technique. So initially we were not understanding the language of law. After we gave so many exams, we studied. Now we are able to understand what the text means. The classification may be either legal or doctrinal. Doctrinal means you are trying to derive the meaning. Legal means it is the actual rule of law. Legal means it is the actual rule of law. Doctrinal, it is to discover the real and the true meaning of the statute. So legal means read the text as it is, keeping law in mind. But doctrinal is to apply the facts, circumstances. You're trying to actually go into the head of the lawmaker and trying to see what he really and actually wanted to say. So legal may be either authentic or usual. Authentic means you are trying to interpret the real meaning from the lawmaker itself. You're trying to get into the head of the lawmaker and trying to understand what he wants to say. Usual means it is our usual interpretation by applying the local trade customs usages. It comes from other sources like customs or case law. Okay. So authentic means from the act itself. Usual means it is written in the act, but that is not what we follow. Or nothing is written in the act, but these are the trade customs that we follow. It may also be grammatical and logical. Yes, doctrinal may be further subdivided into grammatical and logical. So see how is the interpretation? Interpretation is either legal or doctrinal. Okay. Doctrinal is further divided into authentic and usual. It is further divided into authentic and usual. Authentic means what is in the intention of the lawmaker. Usual means we follow the trade customs. I this should have written over here. That is what I was thinking. Some legal is authentic and usual. Doctrinal is grammatical and logic. Grammar is again reading and understanding the text as it is. Keep the comma where it is. Ma'am, it doesn't make any sense. Remove that comma and now you read. It is making more sense now. That is logic. So grammatical means when the court applies the ordinary rules of speech, we don't even change the comma, full stop, and is read as and only. Ma'am, it is not making any sense. Acha, do one thing. Instead of and, read it as or. It is making more sense. Then that is logical. When you go beyond the letter of law, when you try to discover the intention of the statute in some other way, then that is logical interpretation. Interpretation and construction. Interpretation is the cardinal rule. Cardinal means it is the basic, or you can say it is the fundamental rule. Yes. Read and understand the text as it is without applying your logic, without applying your brain. First, see, the law is made by lawmakers and they are not foolish people. Okay, laws are made by the lawmaker. They are also experts, but try to understand what is their intention. So first try to at least appreciate what the lawmaker has said. So they are all experts, no? So first try to understand the intention of the lawmaker. If that doesn't make sense, then you apply logic. So step number 1 is always going to be interpretation. The cardinal, that is the basic, the fundamental rule is that if the language is simple and unambiguous, then it is to be read with the clear intention of the legislature. If everything is clear, then you don't need to go anywhere else. Interpretation is finding the true sense of any form, whereas construction is drawing off the conclusion which lies beyond the direct expression of the text. So what is interpretation? First try to find the true meaning from that form. So first try to understand the text as it is. But if we want to go beyond the letter of law, we are applying logic. We are considering the circumstances also. Then that is interpretation. So trying to draw conclusions from things which lie beyond the letter of law. It means keep the text aside. Think logically. That is construction. So when the courts adhere to the plain meaning, that is interpretation. When the court is trying to read the text as it is, trying to understand what the lawmaker had in mind, that is interpretation. If reading of the text leads to absurdity, words are capable of another alternate meaning and we feel that the alternate meaning is better, then the courts may adopt the same, and that is nothing but construction. Ma'am, what if no such alternative is available? That alternate interpretation is not available. Then you go with literal interpretation. Read the text as it is. Even if it is leading to absurdity, there is no alternative available. That's what law is. That is why the law keeps amending. No? We bring amendment. Okay. What is the need for interpretation and construction? Yes, we agree. We agree that laws are drafted by legal experts, but they are also human beings. It is written in a language, like while writing, I had something in my mind, but when people read it, they interpreted that in a very different manner. So we need construction. So yes, law is drafted by experts, but they are also humans. They also have certain expression. Maybe they were not able to bring out that expression while drafting the act. No language is perfect. It leads to ambiguity. Like even words can have so many different meanings. Everything depends upon the context in which it is used. If the statute is open to interpretation, courts, we are advising you to go with that interpretation which reflects the true intention of the lawmaker. See, one may seem logical and other is literal. So go with the logical. Go with the interpretation that actually tries to bring out the true intention of the lawmaker. Through the process, you are trying to discern. Discern means find out, understand the meaning of the legislature. Interpretation may be either grammatical or logical. Grammar means reading the text as it is. Logical means you are trying to apply logic in that. Grammatical concerns itself exclusively to the verbal expression. Means I'm reading the comma also there only. Sometimes even a comma can create absurdity because meaning changes. So remove it and see, it is making more sense. That is logical. That is logical interpretation. Logical, on the other hand, it tries to seek more satisfactory evidence of the true intention of the legislature. Now, in order to understand law, there are various aids, helpers we will discuss. This is very important for short note. Okay, very important for short note. What is the difference between mandatory and directory provision? Okay, what is a, just a minute, there's some. So a short note can be asked on mandatory and directory provisions. Mandatory means when the power to do an act is also combined with duty. It is your duty, and for fulfilling that we are giving you the power. It means it is mandatory. Directory means it's optional. Even if you don't 100% comply with it, we are okay. We are okay with substantial compliance also. Substantial means if you have complied like 70-80%, we are fine. Whether the provision is directory or mandatory depends upon the scope and statute. Mandatory means you have to do it. So words like must, shall, they will be used. So mandatory means it must be strictly observed. Mandatory means it must be strictly observed. You have to do it. We have given you the power and the duty to do it. Whereas the word directory, it is sufficient if it is substantially complied with. 70-80% compliance is also fine. However, we must look into the substance. Substance means we must look into the facts, circumstances, and not merely the form. We must not just look at the technical or the legal meaning. You also have to look into the facts, circumstances of the case. That is substance over form. An enactment is mandatory if it is a duty combined with power. Okay. There are different rules of interpretation and construction. So these are the primary rules and the secondary rules. Let us go through them each. Let's go to each of them one by one. Rule of literal construction. Literal means you are trying to read and understand the text as it is without applying any logic, any facts, circumstances of the case. If it is making sense, very good. Only when it leads to absurdity, then we will go to logical interpretation. So word sentences should be read in the ordinary, natural, grammatical meaning. When the language is plain, I'm only highlighting the keywords. When it is plain, unambiguous, there is only one meaning. There is no question of construction. Where the language has only one meaning, there is no rule for interpretation. You don't have to refer here. But when there is confusion, then you will go to interpretation. When the words have two interpretations, you have to make a choice. Okay? One interpretation fails to achieve the desired intention of the lawmaker, then adopt the other interpretation. So what they want to say is, go with the interpretation which actually brings out the true intention of the lawmaker. I don't think lawmaker had this in mind. This is more logical. Go with that. This is also advising the court on what they should do. If the phrases are very clear, then just go with the rules of grammar. If there are two possible understandings, one is literal, it is based on the exact meaning of the sentence, other is more logical, go with the logical one. So, literal may not be the better one, so go with the logical. But this is very important statement. I really love it. We are asking you to apply your logic. We are asking you to apply the facts, but you should not take away the true sense of the legislature. You should not interpret in a manner which will change the entire meaning itself. Nothing should be added, nothing should be removed from the legislature. Okay? Now, natural and grammatical meaning, rule of literal interpretation has a natural and grammatical meaning. Again, first the word should be understood in the natural, ordinary or popular sense. Statutes may be modified, extended, abridged. Modified means you are making changes. Extended means you are adding something. Abridged means you are bringing a summary version of it only if there is absurdity or inconsistency. It may be modified, extended or abridged only if it involves absurdity or inconsistency. So first, you have to understand it in the natural, ordinary or popular sense. Now, the question before the court of law was whether the sale of betel leaf is subject to sales tax. Now, betel leaf, if we see the scientific meaning, it means the leaf of a Papyracea family. So, who will understand that? Nobody will understand it. No, but when I say betel leaf, pan ka patta, ha, everybody understands it. The law says instead of going for the scientific meaning, go for a popular meaning. Explanation of the rule. Like if I say the word livestock, to a common man, it will mean chicken, but it includes everything which has life. So, words are to be first understood in their natural. This is step one. First, understand them in their natural, ordinary or popular sense. Okay. The meaning, if it leads to absurdity, then you apply your logic. The meaning of the word also depends upon the context in which it is. Exact meaning is always preferred to the loose meaning. Like if I say the word obtain or get, what is the meaning of the word to obtain? Yeah, it means to get. But the exact meaning will ask you to get with the consent of the other person, or it also means to obtain with force. And ma'am, obviously with consent of the other person. Don't you think that it is a more exact meaning? Exact meaning is always preferred to the loose meaning. The word obtain, it means to get. But to get it with the consent of the other person or forcefully, ma'am, consent of the other person. That is the exact meaning. Technical words should be understood in the technical sense. Like when I say the word practice, like he's a practicing lawyer. Does it mean that he's only doing the paperwork, or it also means that he will also fight the case for you in the court of law? Ma'am, fight also in the court of law. So the word practice, it generally involves both the function, acting as well as pleading for the litigant party, not just paperwork. Like you are a chartered accountant. You will not just prepare the return, but if anything happens, you will also represent your client in front of the income tax authority. Reasonable construction. Rule of literal construction failed. Then apply logic. That is reasonable construction. The words of the statute must be construed. They must be understood. So while interpreting law, when two interpretations are possible, one is very literal, but other is more reasonable, more logical, then the second one will be preferred by the court. So if the first is quite vague and meaningless, but the other one is leading to certainty, meaningful interpretation, then in that case, the latter one will be preferred. So courts, if they feel that giving the plain meaning will not be fair, it will not be reasonable, then it is the duty of the court to adopt a meaning which is which will give more advanced remedy, which will advance the remedy and suppress the mischief, which will reduce the mischief. These are the keywords. Rule of harmonious construction. There are two different provisions in the same section. You have to find a midway. Okay. So this finds a midway. Let's say, for example, that section 33 of the Representation of People Act 1951, it states that a government servant may nominate or second means support. You may nominate or support a candidate seeking election. But section 123 of the same act also states that if you want to support, then that will only be by casting your vote. So both are saying something different. One is saying that you may support, other is saying you cannot support except by vote. Let's find a midway. So you can support only through voting. So that is a midway. This is nothing but harmonious construction. Harmony means to live in peace. When there is a doubt about the meaning of the words, it should be understood in the most harmonized form. The sections, subsections, everything should be read together. Okay? The sections, the subsections, they must be read as a part of the integral whole. They are all interdependent. Interdependent means they are all dependent on each other. Everything has to be read in harmony. If it is impossible to avoid inconsistency, the provision which was enacted later in the point of time will prevail. So the one which was enacted later, maybe through it was introduced through an amendment, that will prevail. It is applicable when there is real and not merely an apparent conflicts. If the words are capable of just a single meaning, this rule is not required. There are different meanings of these words. So I'm just giving you the head points. It can be asked as a short note, so we should be aware of it. Sometimes you may read that the provision is subject to. What is the meaning of subject to? Giving more importance to other provisions. Like say, for example, Section 13 of the Companies Act says that any change in the name of the company shall be subject to the provisions of such. It means that these provisions, okay, any change in the name, that will be effected subject to. It means you have to follow me, but follow that provision first. It will be subject to the provisions of subsection 2 and 3 of section 4. So giving more importance to other provisions. It gives the other laws an overriding effect. So we are giving more importance to the other. When the subject matter covered by that provision, okay, there is a conflict. So you are giving more importance to the other person, then we will use the word subject to. What is the meaning of notwithstanding? It is an overriding effect. It means I don't agree with what you say. Listen to me. Notwithstanding anything contained over there. That is an overriding effect. Okay. It is called a non-obstinate clause. I highlight this. When this term is used, then the clause will prevail over the other provision. So you are giving more importance to self than others. Without prejudice, it means follow that and follow me also. Follow these provisions also. Now, there are general provisions which are followed by specific provisions. So, there are specific provisions followed by general. So, follow both. Follow the specific provisions, then also follow the general provisions. Without prejudice means without hampering or overriding the other provisions. So, follow that, but follow me also. Then we have the rule of beneficial construction or the Hayden's rule. This rule is basically enacted with the aim of reducing mischief and advancing remedy. See, why are amendments made? Why are the acts amended? Because we know that there was some mischief which was being prejudiced, okay, which was giving advantage to just one party. So through an amendment, we are trying to reduce that mischief and give remedy. When the language is capable of more than one interpretation, okay, language is capable of more than one interpretation, then the Hayden's rule will apply. Hidden rule says that whenever you want to make any change in the act, ask yourself 4 questions. What was the law before making the act? What mischief it did not provide? What remedy are you providing, and what is the reason for that remedy? So you are trying to justify why you are enacting a provision. So what was not covered in the earlier act? What was it not trying to address? What are you trying to address? What is the reason for your remedy? The rule says that you should try to suppress the mischief and advance remedy. But this rule will obviously be used when there is ambiguity and the provisions are capable of more than one meaning. In fact, the entire interpretation of statutes is used only when there is ambiguity. When the words are very clear, then we don't need these rules. Rule of exceptional construction. Now suppose that comma is creating some ambiguity. Rule says except means remove this, and now read the sentence. Is it making sense? Alright, then don't read with the comma. Acha, if I use the word and if I read it as it is, it is creating confusion. Do one thing, just remove this and try to read the sentence without it. Is it making sense? Okay, then remove it and read. Acha, it's still not making sense. Then instead of and, write or. Oh, if I substitute it with or, it is making sense. Then substitute that with or. Acha, instead of or, if I write the word and, it is making more sense. Then you use it as it is. Then you, instead of or, you write and. Instead of and, you can write or if it is making more sense. Ma'am, why not make amendment in the act? See, students, it is not possible to amend the entire act just for one word. It's a huge procedure which is to be. So common sense rule says that if you cannot give a sensible meaning to that word, just try to eliminate it. And now read the sentence. Is it making more sense? Then you eliminate that word. Sometimes and is to be read as or, sometimes or is to be read as and. See, and is basically conjunctive. Conjunctive means it is joining, and or is disjunctive, means it separates the two sentences. If you read the word and or as it is creating confusion. So substitute and see. If it is making more sense, then use it. And may be legitimately construed as or when the intention is clear and when other construction defeats the intention. So if you read the word and as it is creating confusion. Treat it as or. Now read the sentence. If it is making more sense, then you can substitute. May, must, and shall. May shows discretion. It is discretionary in nature. Discretionary means it is optional. You want to do it, you do it. Otherwise, let it be. Whereas the word must, and a polite way for saying must is shall. Okay, shall is just a polite way of saying you have to do it, must. This is discretionary, whereas must and shall is mandatory. Discretionary means we are okay if you substantially fulfill it. Substantially means we are okay with 60-70%. So the word may, it shows that the provision is discretionary. It is just courtesy. Like if you want, you do it. Otherwise, let it be. It is not mandatory. Okay, so discretionary is conferred upon public authority with obligation. Then, okay, let's read this sentence. Now, if I read the word may as it is, I don't think this was the intention of the lawmaker. They are giving you power along with duty, but in order to be polite, they are using the word may. Power plus duty. Even though the word used is may, they want to imply that it is must. Because it is power plus duty, it is mandatory. They are just being polite and using the word. So it is purely conventional courtesy. So the word may should be read as must. Generally speaking, when we write the word shall, it is prima facie mandatory. We are just being polite. Under certain circumstances, shall may however be construed as may depends upon the context. See, why are we studying all this? Because there is confusion. The rule of exceptional construction says that if I use the word may as it is creating confusion. So instead of may, try using must. Is it making more sense? Yes, then you do that. If you are using the word must, but then the context shows that it is like discretionary, and it is directory, then the word must be construed as may. Shall and may, they may be used in the same section. It normally leads to the conclusion that shall will impose an obligation, may is discretionary. So when shall and may both are used in the same section, the word shall imposes obligation and the word may gives discretionary power. This is a repetition of what we studied earlier. The word mandatory, the word mandatory implies that it has to be strictly observed, whereas the word directory, it is like sufficiently 80-90% is also fine with. If the provision gives power coupled with duty, you may feel that, ma'am, there is so much to learn, but actually it is the same point which is written in different manner. So when there is power coupled with duty, then it is mandatory. It is mandate, even though the language seems like it is discrete. The rule of adjustum genesis, it means of the same kind or species. Now, if I write the word war, disturbance, any other cause, if there are specific words which are followed by general words, then these general words should derive their color from the specific. So, and any other cause will not include peaceful activities. It will include activities which are related to war, disturbance, etc. If I use the word dog, cat, cows, buffalo, and other animals, if there are specific words followed by general words, then the general word will derive their color from the specific words. This and other animals will not include wild animals. It will include domestic animals only. So when there are specific words which are used after there are specific words which are followed by general words, then the general word would derive its color from the specific word. So those were the primary rules of interpretation. We have the secondary rules also. So yes, they are not forming part of any act, but usage or trade custom. Now please note, students, this can be asked as a theory question. It is very frequently asked, what are the external aids to interpretation or construction? Usage, yes, they help us to understand law. They are unwritten rules, but they are always formed with some intention, like partners. They will get interest on capital if it is mentioned in the deed or there is a usage or trade custom. Now, why was this usage introduced? Law says that these parties may not have entered into a written agreement or they don't know about it. But in order to help them, like, you are giving money. If you would have invested that in the bank, you would have earned interest. Or just to help them, there was a usage which was started, and that continued for many years. So that was the aim of introducing that unwritten rule, just to help people because they are investing their money into business. We want to encourage people to invest money into business rather than keep it in the bank. We are saying that you will get interest if there is a trade custom. So why was that law introduced? The trade custom will help you to interpret that. Old statutes and documents, they should be interpreted at the time they were enacted. So you may be wondering that, ma'am, in Contract Act, they are still using the word telegram. Who sends telegram? The post office has also stopped that. But there was a time when the fastest means of communication was telegram. Today, the fastest means is like your mobile. But that time, the fastest means was telegram. So when you read the Contract Act, try to understand why that service was introduced. Associated words should be understood in the common sense manner. Like, for example, if I'm using the word business, trade, profession. If I'm using the word profession together with business or trade. Now, see, the word profession actually means non-profit. Like, teaching is a profession. I'm not doing this with the aim of earning profit. Now, you may be, that's not the case. You're charging good amount of fees from us. But teaching is actually considered as a profession. I know I'm charging for the services that I'm providing, but I also need to run a house. I also need to survive. So even medicine, like, doctors, they are also considered to be in a very noble profession. Generally, the word profession gives the impression that it is a non-profit business. I should not use the word business, it is non-profit. But when the word profession is used along with business, trade, it derives its color from those words. So the associated words are to be used in the cognate sense. They are all to be used together. So when the word profession is used along with business or trade, this also indicates a profit-making profession. When you use the word a house for public refreshment, resort, and entertainment, or entertainment, if used individually, it may mean dance and music, but when it is used with public refreshment, resort, entertainment, it may have a different meaning. So generally we associate it with music, dance, theater, but when it is used along with refreshment, resort, and entertainment, so it may mean that you are going to a water resort or a gaming resort and that kind of a resort. There are these words which mean the same. Other secondary rules, they mean the same as what was explained earlier. Nocitur socius, it means that when two or more words, they are susceptible, they are likely to have similar meaning, analogous meanings, they are coupled together, they are to be understood in the cognate sense. So when you include manufactured beverages, including fruit juice, bottled water, and syrup, will the fruit juice be fresh or will it be bottled? Of course, it will be bottled because it is used with bottled water and syrup. It will not be natural fruit juice. It will be artificial only. Okay? So it will be construed as, in the context of the preceding word, orange unsweetened juice will not be used. So private dispensary is not a commercial establishment. If it is used with business or trade, it is very similar to this. Very similar to this. Doctrine of contemporanea exposito, it means that a statute or document should be interpreted by referring to the exposition it has received from a contemporary authority. Okay? So it simply means that go back into time and try to understand why the law was enforced, what was the economic scenario that time. Like, for example, in a particular era, if alcohol was banned, why was it banned? If you want to understand why this law was made, go back to that time of history, go back to that time and try to understand why alcohol was banned, why that law was made. So that economic environment, the environment at that point of time will help you to interpret. So custom is the best interpreter of, can be asked as a short note. Basically, these are for short note. Once you understand the meaning, you just have to learn them. This is very similar to this. Very similar. Now, there are certain internal and external aids to interpretation or construction. So we will first discuss the internal aid and then we will also study the external aids. Internal aids, they help to understand the law, but these aids are in the act itself. Okay. Internal aid means they are in the act itself. Okay. They are present in the act itself. So long title, whenever there is confusion, whenever you want to know whether the act applies to you or not, refer the long title. Long title is different from short title. See, long title is more elaborate. It explains the purpose of the act, whereas short title is only indicative. It is only for convenience. It only identifies the act. Long title, highlight. Long title describes the enactment. It does not merely identify. Whereas short title merely identifies the enactment. It is chosen for convenience. So if you read the Companies Act, the long title says that this is an act to amend and consolidate the law relating to companies. Whereas the short title will say that this is the Companies Act. See how it just identifies it. Whereas the long title will specify what is covered, what is the scope. So it is an act to consolidate and amend the law relating to companies. So will this act apply to proprietary or partnership? No, it applies to company. Long title is basically explaining the clear meaning of the enactment. Preamble, yes, very important for short note. So preamble defines the SOP, scope, object, and purpose of the act, and it is defined more comprehensively than the long title. Sometimes the preamble and long title are the same. See, there are two steps to be followed. Step number 1. If the provisions are clear, don't refer the preamble. If provisions are not clear, it means they are ambiguous, then refer the preamble. So if the provisions are clear, don't refer the preamble. But if there is confusion, only then we will refer the preamble. Section 5 of the Hindu Marriage Act says that the marriage may be solemnized between two Hindus. Now the question arises, there is one Hindu and one Christian. Can they perform the marriage under the Hindu Marriage Act? So a marriage may be, the word may is actually creating confusion. May indicates that it is not compulsory. It may be solemnized between two Hindus. Can we have one Hindu, one Christian? There is confusion. Refer the preamble. It says this is an act to amend and codify the law relating to marriage among Hindus. Both parties have to be Hindu. Confusion is clear. Heading and title of the chapter. Look here. The act is first divided into chapters. Chapters are then divided into sections. So every chapter has a heading. Yes. So we have chapter 1 preliminary, chapter 2 incorporation, chapter 3 prospectus allotment. So the act is first divided into chapter and each chapter has a heading. Chapter is further divided into section. This basically helps us to identify what is covered in that chapter. All the related sections are grouped together. So if today I want to know what are the provisions applicable to incorporate a company, then I will refer the chapter 2 which provides the sections to incorporate a company. If I want to know what is the procedure for acceptance of deposits, I will refer chapter 5. So the act is divided into chapters. The chapter is then divided into sections. Heading and title of the chapter. A number of sections, they are grouped together. They form chapters. The heading and title, they can be referred for the purpose of construing the enactment. So the title will tell you what the enactment is about, what the sections are about. The headings may sometimes be referred to know the scope. Okay? So sometimes we refer the heading to know what is covered in that section. although they don't explain the section. But yes, they will help us to understand the scope of the section in the same way as preamble. Marginal notes can be asked as a short note along with some other provision, like they may say explain preamble and marginal notes, heading and marginal. These marginal notes are summaries. They help to understand the section. So they are summary, they are side notes. But you cannot consider them as something which will help you to understand the entire section. They will provide support, but they don't help us to construe the entire section. They are appended. Appended means they are attached. They do not form part of the enactment. They are not an aid to construction because they are additional. Sometimes under exceptional circumstances, we may use them to understand a section. Definitional sections, yes, why are definitions important? Because it defines at one place, it provides uniformity. Yes. So certain words are defined so that everybody has the same meaning attached to it. Yeah. When a word or phrase is defined having a particular meaning, only that meaning will be given to the word while interpreting the act. Now, if I use the word director, the word director, when used in the Companies Act, will have a different meaning as compared to the director of a film or theater. So you have to explain the word. Otherwise, there are so many different interpretations to which it is open. So the definition actually provides a meaning which will help us to interpret that, and everybody will have the same meaning attached to that word. The purpose is to provide proper interpretation of the enactment. It also helps to shorten the language of law. Now, instead of explaining that word again and again, whenever, wherever it is used, better to define at one place something very similar to what we had discussed in the General Clauses Act. It brings uniformity, everybody will have the same meaning. And unique words should be defined in the Act itself. If not given, then refer the General Clauses Act. It shortens the language of law. So law says that if you have the power to appoint, it is understood that you also have the power to remove or suspend. Illustrations. Illustrations are examples. Yes, if you see the Contract Act, you will find many examples given to understand the section. So they do not form part of the section. They, however, form part of the act, that is statute. They are relevant because they help in construing, they help in understanding the text. Proviso is very important. It's an exception. You may have seen provided that. Yes, proviso, the function of the proviso is to qualify, remove something out of the enactment. So this provision applies to all except this. If we would have not removed those, then the provisions would have applied to those few situations also. But through a proviso, you are removing it from the act. So it is trying to qualify something stated in the qualify means to remove it. The effect is to qualify the enactment. If the terms are too general, you're trying to remove it. Small company, yes, it is defined in section 2 clause 85. There is an exception, see. The section will not apply to holding subsidiary, non-profit, special acts. Now, the word used is company. The word company includes all the companies, holding, subsidiary, not-profit, section 8 company, incorporated under the special act. All this is included here. Through an exception, we are removing it. We are saying that the word company which is used will not include this. It will not include. We are trying to remove it. As a general rule, the proviso is added to an enactment to qualify or to create an exception. Okay? Is to qualify or to create an exception. So we may have seen the word provided that, okay, it is the cardinal rule of interpretation that a proviso or an exception, it only embraces the field which is covered by the main provision. So it embraces means it is removing from the main section. See, you can remove only when that thing is contained in the section. So we are embracing it, removing it from the main section. It carves out an exception to the main provision. Explanation. If you read the definition of holding subsidiary company, yes, holding and subsidiary, there they have written explanation because we feel that people may be confused. We feel that there may be some confusion, so we are trying to provide explanation. Explanation is added to the section to explain the meaning of certain words, phrases. It removes obscurity, it means vagueness. It provides additional support. It may be added to include something or it may be to exclude something. This is through a proviso. You can exclude it through a proviso. So explanation can be used to add something and as well as remove something. Schedules. So if you see the Companies Act, there are 7 schedules. LLP has 4 schedules. So these schedules, they form part of the Act. Now, if everything is written in the Act, it will become so bulky. Basically, these schedules provide the procedure for conversion. Schedules provide the format, like I want to prepare the P&L and balance sheet. So I need the format. What activities are covered in CSR so that those activities are provided. So they basically support the Act. They form part of the Act. They must be read together with the Act. Okay, so it helps us to provide more details and forms for the working of the section. If there is inconsistency, between the schedule and the enactment will prevail always. External aids. So also go through the historical settings, ancient statutes, authentic works, history. They will all help you to interpret law. Again, external aids is very important for theory question. It is very important for theory question. Go to the time and try to understand what was the historical setting and why the provisions are made in that manner. If you see the Sale of Goods Act, it does not mention anything about online trading because it was not present at that time when the Sale of Goods Act was made in 1930. In the Contract Act, you will not find anything about airways. It was not there only that time. In Sale of Goods Act also, airways is not mentioned, roadways is mentioned, railways mentioned, shipping is mentioned. Consolidating statutes and previous laws. So the Companies Act, if you read it, it is an act to amend and consolidate the law relating to companies. We want to take everything together. This doesn't mean that the 2013 Act will forget whatever was written in the 1956 Act. We will take everything together. Usage, trade, customs, they also help to ascertain the true meaning of the legislature. Earlier and later acts, analogous means similar act. So when there are different statutes, they are to be construed together as one system. So if we have the Companies Act 2013, then we have the Companies Amendment Act 2015, 2016, 2017. They all have to be read together. Each and every act is to be part of each other as if they were a part of a composite act. If there is any discrepancy, then the act which was enacted later will prevail. So if there is any ambiguity, the Amendment Act which came later will prevail. If you have any ambiguity, try to find the meaning in the act. If everything fails, for the dictionary. But they have also mentioned that whenever you read the word, always keep the context in mind. Now, when you Google a word, the meaning is given. But they also have, like, if it is used as an adjective, this is the meaning. If it is used as a noun, context is very important. Technical words should be read in the technical dictionary. Sometimes when the Indian laws fail to provide, this is important for short note, very important. If your particular law is silent, there is no judgment also which will guide us. The English and American decisions can be considered because they have the same jurisprudence. Jurisprudence means we have very similar court structure. They have very similar laws like us. But yes, we should also consider the Indian life while construing the Indian statutes. Okay. So the American or English laws can be referred even today because they help us to understand the general principles and construing the acts in pari material. Pari means similar material. Like today also, if nothing is given in the Contract Act, we still refer the English Contract Act. Because anyways, that time the Britishers were present. So Contract Act is very much based on the English Contract Act. So even today, if nothing is given, we refer the English Contract Act. They have the same jurisprudence. So students, with this, we come to an end of interpretation of statutes. It can be very dry, it can be very boring, it can be technical, but it is of very high weightage. Please don't leave this chapter in option. I have tried to simplify the notes as much as I could. Please go through the material. Yes, please go through the material. And please try to learn. If you're not able to learn, write all this 2 times and you will be able to memorize. Okay, I have considered all the options, etc. Just write this note. I had explained this, but if you want, you can write it. So just go through the notes, try to write the keywords. You can write in your own words, but include the keywords at least. Okay. So with this, we come to an end of interpretation of statutes. I will see you in my next lecture. Till then, keep learning, keep studying. Don't put this lecture in option. Okay? This chapter is very important for exam. Leaving it in option is not an option. All right. I'll see you next time.